Me. I demand it.
So why do you have to do that?
What?
Why do you have to record yourself?
I've been asked by the hub to record some of the lectures so they can do transcript notes and then also have them as a store or stored. I wanted to record my lectures from day one just on the event that, let's say we didn't come to school today. I could upload this video to all of you guys and we're not out anytime. We haven't gotten there yet. And I refuse to go sit in like the little recording studio in the dark and do it because it's not going to be as fun as if I'm doing it live. I think. I should charge you guys tickets to this show. I know.
How much more do you want?
Hey, that's why I try to make sure it's worth every minute, right? So we've already talked about the olfactory sense or the sense of smell again. These sensory receptors are in our nasal passages as well. Again, so much of our smell is the things that's brought into our nasal passages just by us breathing. And then the respiratory system, again, this textbook has it pretty much broken out. Upper respiratory tract is everything outside the lungs, whereas the lower respiratory tract is the lungs and structures within. So like the alveoli, the bronchioles, that kind of thing. I'm okay with us knowing this way is a pretty basic breakdown. Outside the lungs or outside of the chest is the upper. So when we say, again, upper respiratory tract, all the structures outside the lungs, we're going to remember that's nose, mouth, throat, and trachea, okay? Where this is maybe more just bronchioles, the bronchioles, and the lungs themselves, of course, with the alveoli. Trachea is considered more upper, yeah. I don't think I ask anything specific, but you do just want to try to, again, work on visualizing things. So when, you know, I go like this to you guys, you can name all these structures between my two hands, right? So visualizing your body parts, because that's what you're going to be doing when you start your physical exams, right? You're looking at the dog head. You can't see his throat, but can you feel it? Right? Can you open his mouth and look inside? All of those things. So just work on that. So this is a nice little photo. Kind of looks like a nightmare. So again, upper respiratory tract, all of the different things. This has kind of a nice little side view that shows our epiglottis, or that doorway flap that protects our trachea. Now, epiglottis, he can be a pesky little guy, but he is important. I think we've covered most of this stuff. You guys already knew. I think we brought this up with the interventricular septum, right? How many of you guys got it pierced? No one? No one?
I was thinking
Oh, rip it out.
Yeah, that's why I changed my mind.
Rip it right out. Yep.
I have friends who have it, and at work they have to put
Yeah. And then our turbinates, so we've talked about these a little bit before too, so you can kind of see, again, they're up above our upper palate. These turbinates, again, help to humidify, filter, warm. We have a couple different passageways. I won't ask you to know them, but do you remember the term meatus? Yeah, the external acoustic meatus. So we have lots of meati in our body, all over the place. And meatus just means passageway or tube, passageway. That's kind of what it is. Again, with the lining, we have mucus, we have little hairs, we have some cells, right? So these structures are all within our nose. And again, help to trap, filter, warm a little bit with the blood. All of that air as it's coming into our body. I mean, again, if you guys were thinking, how freaking cold was it this morning when you stepped outside, right? Like if we had no way to warm the air just slightly, it would be very difficult to breathe, right? I'd say like in Antarctica, but that's not true anymore. No. Too soon?
No, it's relevant. You can talk about
Yeah, no, it is. It's like 70 degrees there right now.
It's not.
Whoa.
It's not Antarctica anymore. Yeah, exactly. So our sinuses, again, we've talked about these and how bad they suck. The one thing I guess to note off of this slide is that they are just named off of what skull bone they live in. Okay, so maxillary sinus right above the maxilla, frontal sinus up in our forehead. Gosh, guys, it was like last year I woke up one day and I seriously felt like I had been punched in the face. Like when I looked in the mirror, I even had like a little bruise right over the bridge of my nose. And I was like, what the heck? Like, did my daughter accidentally do something last night? Like, what in the world? It was my freaking sinuses. I had the worst sinus infection ever. And I didn't really think anything of it, I guess. I just thought it was a cold or something like that. But it hurt to the point I was bruised. There was so much pressure in my face. It's horrible. Ooh. It's so hard for me because I don't hear every bit of you guys' lecture. But when I like to take myself a little bit of Mucinex, because at this point when I had all that going on, I was like double dosing. I was like jacked up on some Mucinex.
When you jumped into that?
Yeah, so apparently. What is, do you guys know the drug name of Mucinex? Guafenicin, and you do need to know this stuff. So while it was relevant, I thought I'd bring it up. So guafenicin, love it. Love it. Guafenesin.
Okay.
Guafenicin.
Not like guacamole.
Not like guac, no, unfortunately. So again, with the throat, we do divide it into a couple different ways. So our nasopharynx is more respiratory. The oropharynx is more again where the food's gonna go down, right? So just different parts of our throat. Again, where's the ending? The esophagus, obviously for digestive. And then the voice box if you're still on the respiratory. Again, with the voice box, it's a whole bunch of cartilage. It's a whole bunch of cartilage. It is pretty rigid of a material, as you guys probably already know, with cartilage. And shapes can vary, right? Shapes and structure can vary. Again, as air kind of comes in, as I'm breathing in and out, it helps to make those sounds. You know, again, with the purr, the cat's not doing anything extra to purr, right? He's just breathing still. From his voice box, from his larynx.
So does it really mean that they're happy, or is they an all the time kind of thing?
So can they control it? Yes. Otherwise, they do it all the time, right? But they're not really doing anything extra. I guess it'd be like, how much work am I putting into consciously talking right now?
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, it's not a lot of work.
Right.
You're just doing it.
Right.
It's just the air coming back and forth over these weird little thingies in my throat that's making my lovely voice. It's crazy, right? So again, with the epiglottis, this is probably the biggest structure that we care about. Yes, we do care about these other cartilages. Really, they only come into play like with cats who are really hard to intubate. We will actually numb some of their cricoid and arytenoid cartilages with lidocaine so that they stop slamming shut like this. But otherwise, don't really care too much. You guys want to know something like?
Yes. Yes.
Didn't let me finish. Okay. So, gosh dang, I'm trying to think like where this story even came from or why the doctor was talking to us about it. But there was somebody who came in to the clinic in South Hutch back in the day, and they wanted to debark their dog.
What?
Okay, so this is a thing. It's not really a thing nowadays, but it used to be like a pretty decent thing. Like they wanted to debark their dog.
They still do it.
They do.
People ask.
So the way generally, the best way, if there's a best, is what you do is you're damaging the cartilages. You're trying to make them not as much of a structure. You're not necessarily going in and cutting them out and removing them. That would just be difficult. But you are restructuring them. And the doctor at the time that I was working with had explained to this gentleman, no, sir, we don't do that. I'm sorry, and she had told a story about a case that she had saw in vet school. And she's an older doctor. She was from Colorado, and she had said that they had a case in their clinic when she was either in high school or just starting out. She was still not a vet and still young. What the doctor did, it was a veterinarian who performed it, was put the dog under anesthesia, and they pretty much took the handle of a hammer and rammed it back and forth. And that damaged the cords enough. I know, you asked. You asked. It was, definitely. So what that, again, was supposed to do is to damage the cords, restructure them in a way so that that bark is not as pronounced. Do dogs who already bark still bark? Yeah, they do. And it sounds bad. It sounds horrible.
Just as bad. It's just
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the ear thing, right? As far as like finding a vet who will do that kind of thing for no reason. There's probably vets out there that still do that sort of technique. Again, I don't want to say there's no easy way to do it. It's just not one of those things that should be done. It should be. I don't disagree.
in the same category as a default, though, it's just as much.
Yeah.
Why are we still allowing that?
Great. So yeah, the cartilages are there for a reason, and that helps with the sounds, right? I always think it's so cute when Chewy growls, because like she's so dumb-sized, and like her growl is like super dumb. But it's funny to me because it's a totally different sound than like her normal bark or her little yips. You know, when she's excited, it's like she's trying to be a little. I'll bring her one of these days, you guys. Actually, she needs a nail trim, so she can come with me next week, maybe.
Is she good at that?
She's really good. My daughter can help me do it. But since I've got you guys, just bring her here. So the epiglottis, again, pretty important. This is the little doorway or gatekeeper that keeps us out of the trachea. It covers the larynx during swallowing, again, to make sure that no food gets into the trachea, because that's not good. We've all maybe had that happen. Coughing up a storm, right? With vocal cords, yeah, we've already pretty much talked about a lot of that. Yeah, false vocal cords. Really, there's these extra set of folds, what's sometimes called vestibular folds, because they are more lateral. Yeah, nothing really too exciting with any of that. I think we've covered the voice box, all we need to cover. And this too. So again, larynx is part of the upper airway because it's outside of the chest, helps us make our sound. It can help to trap things trying to get up in us through our throat or through our airway. And then it does have a certain play with how much air gets into the lungs and out of the lungs. So we have a lot of factors that control that. And then the trachea. So again, the windpipe. So the trachea all the way up here, right? So there's our little epiglottis flappy doorway, okay? Our trachea goes all the way to where it bifurcates. Okay, so when we have a branching of something, that's called a bifurcation, okay? Clinically important because when you are intubating, if you get your ET tube all the way to the bifurcation, what's very likely will happen is you're only going to oxygenate and anesthetize one lung. The other lung will collapse. So when you place a ET tube, you want to have your tube ending above the bifurcation to ensure that both sides, when it branches, will equally be oxygenated. Okay. Trachea, I guess, again, lots of cartilage, right? So cartilaginous rings, you guys can feel the rings, right? You can feel these irritations as well. And again, that's a pretty cute picture of the alveoli, the great light clusters. Right. What shape is the trachea's rings? C-shaped, and they have that little band of muscle. All right, so again, we can see lots of issues with the trachea. One thing I've mentioned already is the collapsing trachea. This is actually really common in Yorkies. Thankfully, I've not had a full collapse with the two Yorkie mixes I've had, but they both do this reverse sneezing. You guys know reverse sneezing? It's like the goose sound. I can't even do it. I can't even do it. I'll pull up a YouTube video. And sometimes, well, I should say some people think reverse sneezing has to do not so much with allergies or environment, but the actual anatomy of their airway. And so when Chewy gets all worked up and she's going to town, Kona runs over to her and rubs her neck a little bit. And sometimes that helps, sometimes it doesn't. The other thing that I'll do if she really is going to town is I'll go over and force her mouth to open so that she has to open her mouth and swallow. It's kind of just like that reflex, and swallowing sometimes helps too. But really what happens with the collapsed trachea, and I can pull up an x-ray even and show you guys, it's so obvious. You go from having an airway to nothing. And it's like, how is this dog breathing? But oftentimes it is because the smooth muscle gets flappy and kind of gets sucked into the actual lumen of the airway itself. And if there's something in the middle of my airway, can I breathe around it? Not very easy.
How does it fix itself? Because it only lasts like a couple seconds, right?
Yeah, so, and that again depends on the structure and anatomy of each different dog. Yep.
My Boston is, I didn't know that's where it would be from.
Yeah, so
I
often,
was just kind of open his mouth.
Yep.
I didn't know that was from his tree.
yeah, oftentimes, again, there's schools of thought that think it's just something that they breathe in and it catches them, kind of like how we sneeze when something gets in our nose or airway. I tend to believe, because it always worked on Jimmy too, the neck rub. So
just
I
assumed
think it was
like
that.
That's what I
his
do.
long palate or something.
Yeah, and it could be, that could have something,
Yeah.
for sure. But again, the anatomy of every dog's airway,
Yeah.
though very similar in structure, has its differences. Again, just like you and me, my tonsils might be 1/3 diameter bigger than yours. Right? I ain't even got tonsils anymore. I ain't even got it. So the trachea is pretty important. It also has cilia. Okay, so it also has that cilia and mucus layer. Every time I cough, you guys, whether or not chunks come up, I mean, it is what it is. But that is part of our mucus in that tube that's helping, again, to get that stuff out that's trapped inside. The body knows it doesn't belong in there, so it tries to cough it up, and that hair helps to elevate it as well. In fact, do you know what the medical term for a cough is? Mucociliary escalator. I'm not shitting you. Mucociliary escalator. It's the mucus in the hair that's elevating stuff up out of your airway every time you cough. Now, doesn't it feel good to cough? I know, it doesn't.
This also coming from the person who likes to gouge your earballs.
I know. So the lower respiratory system, again, pretty much all the other structures of the lungs. So the bronchi, the bronchioles, and the alveoli. Oh, okay, and the alveolar ducts. Sure, they can be in there if they want. Why don't I go ahead and stop here, guys? I think I could give you a 20. We're making really good progress. So why don't you guys come back at 11:15 and we'll pick this back up and get finished.